I want you to picture something. A man at a market stand, August, wooden tables stacked with watermelons. He walks up, looks at the pile for about 3 seconds and reaches for one near the top, the darkest green one, the roundest one, the one that looks like what a watermelon is supposed to look like. He lifts it, gives it one thump, tap, tap, nods to himself and puts it in his bag. 15 seconds from start to finish. He's done everything he was taught to do, except nobody taught him. He thumped it because he once watched somebody thump a watermelon. That person was probably doing the same, imitating someone they'd seen without knowing what they were listening for. The knowledge wore off somewhere along the way and left only the gesture behind. And that man is going to drive home, put that melon in the refrigerator, cut it open on Saturday, and it's going to be pale and watery and a little hollow at the center. And he's going to wonder again why watermelons never taste the way they're supposed to. Here's what I want to tell you today. The mistake he made happened before he touched anything. It happened the moment he looked at that pile and decided what he was looking for. That is the mistake almost everybody makes. Not in the tapping, not in the lifting, before all of that. And once you see where the mistake actually is, you can't unsee it. You'll never stand in front of a bin of watermelons the same way again. My father grew watermelons for 40 summers. He never brought a bad one to the table. Not once. And he didn't use anything you can't find on the melon itself. No tools, no gadgets, no tricks. What he had was a way of looking, a way of paying attention. And there is one thing in particular I want to show you. One sign you can read in about 2 seconds that will do more for your choosing than everything else combined. I'll get to it right around the middle of this. It's the one nobody talks about and almost nobody knows. Stay with me, but first, leave a note below. Tell me where you're getting your watermelons this summer. Your state, your stand, your garden patch. I read everyone. I grew up in a plain community in Tuscarawas County, Ohio. We had a small watermelon patch at the back of the property, past the kitchen garden and the bean rows, down where the ground went a little softer near the fence line. My father planted it every May and left it alone to do what it does, which is grow slowly, drink from the soil, and take its time becoming what it's supposed to be. He'd walk that patch in the morning before the day got busy. No gloves, no tools, just walking, slow, like a man who's not in a hurry to be anywhere else. He'd stop at different melons and look at them, not pick them up, not knock on them. Just look, and sometimes put his open hand flat against the side of one for a moment. Not pressing, just resting. The way you'd put a hand on someone's shoulder when you want them to know you're paying attention. I asked him once what he was feeling for. He thought about it for a while, the way he always did when I asked something that he did naturally and had never put into words. Then he said, "It feels like it's finished deciding." I was 11 years old and I filed that away without fully understanding it. It stayed with me for a long time. I understand it now. A watermelon that is ready has a different quality about it than one that isn't. Not just on the outside, the whole thing. And if you've spent enough time with them, you start to feel it before you can explain what you're feeling. Today, I want to give you the explanation. Before I show you the signs, I need to take one thing away from you, something you've probably been using your whole life. I'm sorry to do it, but it's the thing standing between you and a good melon, and there's no working around it. It's color. Most people stand in front of a bin of watermelons and look for the darkest green one, the most vivid one, the one that looks the most like a watermelon is supposed to look. And I understand that completely. We read ripeness through color on almost every other fruit. Peaches go orange, cherries go red, bananas go yellow. So the assumption that green should get darker and richer as a watermelon ripens, that's a reasonable assumption. It's just not true. A watermelon's side stays green through almost the entire ripening process. The difference in shade between a melon with 2 weeks left on the vine and one that's perfectly ready is small enough that you can't reliably see it. What you can see instead, what actually changes, I'll show you in a moment. but the color of the green rind is not it. That's the decoy. That's what pulls your hand toward the wrong melon every time. The summer I first ran our patch on my own, my father was away helping a neighbor for several weeks. I picked every melon that looked ready to me. Dark green, round, looked heavy. I brought them in proud, cut them at the table. Half of them were pale inside, hollow at the center, not sweet. I'd watched my father for years. I thought I knew what he did. What I'd learned was how he moved, how he lifted a melon and carried it. I hadn't learned what he looked at before he ever touched one. I inherited the gesture. I hadn't gotten the knowing inside it. That was my mistake. It might be yours too, and there's no shame in it. Nobody showed us. Today I'm showing you so. Start with the melon's bottom, flip it over. Look at the side that was resting on the ground all summer. Every watermelon has this patch, a spot where the vine kept it too heavy to turn, and the soil held it steady, and the sun never reached. That side is called the ground spot, and it's the most honest surface on the whole fruit. Here's why. The green skin on the rest of the melon gets its color partly from sunlight. You can have a melon sitting in the field for weeks, with beautiful green skin, and still be weeks away from ready. But the ground spot never sees the sun. It can't do anything by sunlight. The only thing that changes its color is what's happening inside the melon. It starts out pale, almost white, like a piece of paper. As the melon ripens, day by day that spot changes. It moves through pale yellow into something warmer and richer. On a melon that was given enough time, enough sun, enough hot days feeding on the vine, that spot turns a deep, warm, golden cream. The color of old butter or the inside of a good cornbread, warm and unmistakable. That color is time. It's the visual record of how many days the vine was still working on that melon. And more days on the vine means more sugar pulled into the flesh. A pale, whitish ground spot, almost greenish white, means the melon was taken too soon. The vine was still working. The sugar hadn't come. A deep, buttery golden spot means it sat through the full heat of the summer and took everything the vine had to give. Most melons in a bin are stacked with the bright green side up and the ground spot pressed down against the cardboard. The first thing to do is flip it. Look at the bottom. If it's white, click back. If it's golden, keep going. That one move, just flipping the melon over, will save you from most of the disappointments. But it's not the only thing, and I want to give you all of it. Now look at the stripes. The pattern of dark green and lighter green running around the whole melon. On most varieties, those two shades are distinct. A deep forest green stripe and a lighter, softer green in between. On a ripe melon, those two shades are clearly different from each other, bold, well separated. You can see the contrast sharply when you look at it. On an underripe melon, those shades are closer together, blurring at the edges, more similar in tone, like the colors haven't quite finished separating. The ripe melon looks more like itself, more defined. The contrast sharpens as the inside finishes. This is easy to check in a bin. Look at two melons side by side and compare the clarity of their markings. The one with bolder, better separated stripes is almost certainly the riper one. But now I want to show you the one sign I check before I look at anything else. The one that Aunt Ruth taught me without meaning to. The one nobody talks about. Aunt Ruth was an older woman in our community known for the quality of her choosing at market. Not just watermelons, any fruit, any vegetable, but watermelons especially. People would watch her at the summer market and try to figure out what she was doing. From a distance, it looked like she was doing almost nothing. I watched her once at a community stand. She walked the length of the table, 12, maybe 15 melons laid out, without stopping until she reached one near the back, slightly rough looking, not the prettiest one. She ran her palms slowly along the rind, not tapping, not pressing, just a slow, flat pass of her hand along the surface, the way you'd feel a piece of cloth before you decided whether to buy it. She paused for a second, picked it up, put it in her basket. The whole thing took maybe 8 seconds. I asked her afterward how she'd known. She looked at me for a moment and then said, very simply, It stopped feeling like it was trying. I've thought about that phrase more times than I can count. Here is what she was feeling for. When a watermelon is still growing, still developing, still not ready, it produces a thin, protective coat on the surface of its rind, a slight, waxy layer, not thick, not obvious. But it makes the surface feel smooth, a little slick, almost polished. It's the melon protecting itself while it works. As the melon finishes, as it completes its ripening, and the vine begins to let go, that protective coat thins out, the surface dries slightly, loses the polish, takes on a matte, faintly rough quality, like the difference between a freshly varnished board and one that has cured completely and settled. The dry surface is the melon at rest, done with its work, done trying. Run your palm slowly along the side of a watermelon. If it's smooth and slick under your hand, it has more time to spend. If there's a very slight drag, not coarse, not rough, just a faint resistance, a matte quality under your palm, that melon has finished. It's where Aunt Ruth's hand wanted to stop. It's where your hand should stop too. Then, this is the sign you cannot see in a photo. You have to touch it, which means it's the one nobody photographs, nobody posts, nobody teaches in 30 seconds on a screen. It lives in the hand, it passes from person to person. Today it passed to you, now the thump. Almost everybody knows about thumping a watermelon. Almost nobody knows what they're actually supposed to hear. They tap because they once saw someone tap, and that person tapped because they saw someone before them. The gesture survived. The listening didn't. Here is what you are listening for. When you knock on a watermelon, the sound travels through the flesh inside. A ripe melon is full of juice. The flesh is loose and water-filled. Sound moves through it, low and round. A resonant, slightly hollow drum sound that almost echoes in your hand. You feel it as much as hear it. Like knocking on a wooden barrel that has something good inside it, an underripe melon is dense and tight inside. The flesh hasn't loosened, sound doesn't travel the same way. It comes back high and flat, a sharp, immediate thunk with no body behind it. An overripe melon, one that's gone past its best, sounds dead. A soft, dull thud with no ring at all. The flesh is starting to break down, going soft and grainy. You don't want that either. So you're not listening for any sound, you're listening for a specific one. The round, low, resonant knock. The sound with dep behind it. The drum in the middle, not too high, not too dead. The one that sounds like something full. Knock on 4 or 5 melons in a row and let your ear learn to hear the difference. You'll reach one, and your hand will know before your head catches up. That's the one. Now lift it, hold it for a moment, and feel the weight. Not just notice that it's heavy, really feel it in your arms. A ripe watermelon is heavier than it looks. It surprises you a little. It pulls down. That weight is water. Ripe, sweet, dense water filling the flesh. A watermelon at its best is almost entirely water by weight, and the flesh is packed with it. An underripe melon is lighter for its size. The flesh is still tight and dry, and it doesn't have that fullness in the hand. When you're standing in front of 2 melons that look about the same size, pick them both up, one in each hand, feel the difference. The heavier one, the one that makes your arm dip more than you expected, is almost always the better melon. Your arms know before your eyes do. Set down the light one. Go with the one that felt like more. Now look at the shape. I don't mean the color, I don't mean the pattern, the shape itself. A watermelon should look even and consistent with itself. Round varieties evenly round. Oval varieties smooth and steady from end to end. What you don't want is a melon that bulges on one side, pinches on the other, or has a flat spot where the curve should be. Here's why. A watermelon grows in shape but according to the conditions it had through the summer. Steady water, steady sun, a healthy vine doing its work consistently, and the melon fills out even all the way around. When growing conditions are interrupted, too much water then not enough, problems with the vine, uneven pollination, the melon grows in fits and starts. It puts on flesh here and not there. You get a shape that doesn't quite match itself, and what shows up on the outside usually reflects what happened on the inside. Hollow spots, pale streaks, uneven sweetness. The lopsided melon has a lopsided interior. The shape is the growth record. Even and smooth means steady growing, which means even ripeness from edge to center. Treat the shape as one more witness. Now I want to show you the late surprise. The sign that almost nobody looks for, and the one that will start changing which melons you reach for once you know it. Look at the skin of the watermelon carefully. On some of them, you'll see lines, brown, rough, web-like markings across the rind, raised, corky, like fine netting or the surface of dried riverbed mud. Some call it webbing. Some of the old growers called it sugar lines. In our community, we just noticed them and knew what they meant. Here is what those lines are. A watermelon flower has to be pollinated to become a melon. And the more times bees visit that flower, the more seeds get set. The more seeds that get set, the more sugar the plant pulls into the melon, because a watermelon produces its sweetness to feed its seeds. More seeds, more sugar. Now, where the bees worked the hardest, the flower was touched the most, and the skin sometimes scars slightly at that point. It forms those brown, corky lines across the rind. Heavy webbing means heavy pollination. Heavy pollination means more seeds set, more sugar called in, sweeter flesh. The melon with heavy webbing is often the one pushed to the back of the stand because it looks rough, not pretty, not smooth. And the smooth, clean, perfect-looking one is up front because it looks like what we expect a watermelon to look like, but the rough one wins. We trust what looks good over what is good. That's been the habit as long as most of us can remember. The webbing is the sign that breaks that habit open. Once you see it, once you know what it means, you'll start reaching to the back of the pile. Look for the webbing. The more you see, the sweeter the melon. Now, for those of you with your own patch, the hardest question a home grower faces is not how to grow a watermelon. It's knowing the exact day to cut it, not the week. The day, because a watermelon does not get sweeter after you cut it from the vine. Whatever it is, the moment the connection breaks, that is what it will be. It doesn't improve on the counter. It can't ripen further in the kitchen. The vine is where the work happens, and the moment you cut that vine, the work stops. Cut too early, and you've thrown away a whole summer's patience. Wait too long, and the flesh goes grainy and starts losing its sweetness on the vine. The window is only a few days wide. Here's how to find it. My mother used to say that the vine will tell you, but only if you've been listening to it all season. She kept a small calendar on a nail by the kitchen window facing the garden. Every year when she planted, she marked the date and counted forward 80 to 90 days, roughly the time our variety needed in our county. As that window came close, she started walking the patch every morning before breakfast. The calendar gives you a neighborhood, she used to say. Your eyes give you the address. The address comes from three things. The first is the tendril. Near where each melon connects to the vine, there's a small curling thread of stem, a thin curl that grows right alongside that connection. While the vine is still feeding the melon, still working on it, that tendril is green and flexible. When the melon is complete, when the vine stops sending, when the work is done, that tendril dries. It curls tighter, goes brown, goes crisp. It's the vine's own signal that this melon has been let go. Green tendril, leave the melon. Brown and dry, start looking at everything else. The second is the ground spot. Same rule as the store, look at the underside. When the golden cream color is deep and warm, the melon has been down there long enough. The third is the skin. A young melon on the vine is glossy, almost shiny. As it finishes, that gloss fades. The skin goes matte, the deep green darkens slightly. Watch for the shine to go flat. When it does, the melon is close. When all three of those things line up, the tendril brown, the ground spot golden, the skin matte, that's your day. Take a clean knife and cut it at the stem, leaving an inch or two attached. Don't pull, don't twist. Cut it clean and bring it in. And one more thing. In the last 10 days before you plan to harvest, ease back on the water. Not dramatically, don't let the vine wilt, but pull back. My mother called it drying towards sweetness. A melon flooded with water right at the end pulls that water into the flesh and dilutes its own sugar. day, but a melon that's been allowed to feel a little of the summer dryness in its final days. The flesh concentrates. The sugar comes forward. You get a smaller melon sometimes, but twice the taste. Trust the dry end. I want to come back to something. When I stood at that community market watching Aunt Ruth, I was trying to figure out what she was doing. I watched her hand on the melon. I watched the speed of it. I watched which one she chose. And afterward, when she told me what she felt for, I spent years practicing that same feeling with my own hand. Not perfectly at first. Sometimes I still chose wrong. But over time, the hand learns what the brain can't fully describe, and eventually I could feel it the way she felt it. The slight drag, the dry matte quality, the surface that had stopped trying. One afternoon, years later, my nephew was standing next to me at a market table doing exactly what I used to do, reaching for the greenest, smoothest one in the pile, and I thought of her. I moved his hand gently to one near the back, rough-looking, with brown webbing across the side. He looked at me the way I must have looked at her once, and I ran my palm along the rind and put his hand there after mine and said, "Feel the difference. This one's done. That one isn't." He felt it, slowly. And then he nodded. That's the moment I understood what she meant. Not just about the melon. She didn't say the melon felt ready or felt ripe or felt like the right one. She said it stopped feeling like it was trying. Because when something is truly done, truly finished becoming what it was made to be, it rests. It doesn't push anymore. It just is. And if you're quiet enough and slow enough, you can feel that in your hand. We inherited the gesture. The thump that everyone does without knowing why, the reaching for the greenest one, the lifting and turning without knowing what to look for. All of that came down through the years. But the knowing that once lived inside those gestures, what the thump was listening for, what the lift was weighing, what the color on the bottom meant, that got separated from the motions somewhere along the way. Today, I hope you got some of it back. Here is what I want you to do before this week is out. Find a watermelon, a stand, a market, anywhere you can hold a few in your hands. Not the grocery bin if you can help it. Find somewhere with melons that haven't been in a cold warehouse for 2 weeks. Flip the first one over. Look at the bottom. Is it pale or golden? Then run your palm along the rind, slow. What does it feel like under your hand? Then look at the spoiled and clear or blurred together, then knock it. What do you hear? Then lift it, more than you expected. Then look at the shape. Then look for the webbing. Choose the one that answers you on the most of those. Take it home. Cut it on a board, plain, no seasoning, and let the inside tell you whether the outside was telling the truth. It will be. And this is the important part, remember what that melon felt like in your hand. Remember what the bottom looked like. Remember the sound it made when you knocked it. Because now you have a standard. Everything after this, you're measuring against that one. That's how the knowing gets established in your hands. Not from a list, not from a video, from one honest melon that shows your hand what right feels like and the memory of it that stays with you. Tell me below which sign surprised you most. The webbing, the texture, the ground spot? I want to know. It only takes a moment, and it helps me know who to talk to next and the next time. I want to tell you what my mother did the year we had more watermelons than we could eat in a week. Because a melon you chose right and brought home, and then let go soft and warm in the kitchen, is its own kind of disappointment. There's an old way of keeping cut watermelons sweet and firm for days longer than most people think is possible. Something we used long before refrigerators, and something that works better than the way almost everyone stores it now. I'll show you that next. Until then, flip it over. Look at the bottom. Slow your hand down on the rind. Listen to what it tells you. It's been trying to tell you for a long time. We inherited the gesture. We lost the knowing. Today you got it back.